send me an email, okay? And if you want to come on the show and you got something that you want to talk about that's earth shattering, sure, I'd love to join you. Okay, send me an email, Michelle. Send me an email, Joe at OhioPoliticalNews.com. All right, Chris, howdy. No, now you were interrupted there, and you were telling us how the dollar was falling. So
the dollar, yes. Well, the dollar fell. Okay, and so let me give you the numbers on that. In 2020, $40,000. In 2023, you now needed $47,092. It decreased in value by 18%. If you go back to 2018 to 2023, it decreased by 21%. That means you would need $48,514. Now, this is not new to anyone that's listening in. In other words, the dollar in your pocket is not what it was just a few years ago. Wages have not increased, but taxes have, and this program has talked about the real estate taxes, but 40 to 50% of our income is taxed. Then when you have that going on where the value of your dollar has diminished so much because of outrageous government spending, this puts, the everyday citizen in a terrible position. Then you throw on this fraud that has been discovered, not just in Minneapolis, but it's in Ohio. And by the way, he said alleged. I know, the state representative. Believe me, it's real. I talked to the state auditor. I talked to him on New Year's Eve. Both he and the state treasurer picked up their phone immediately when I called. Now, you know why that was? Because they know that when I'm calling at times like this, these are critical times. This issue, mark my word, will be a huge issue all this year. Now, the Republicans could get to the bottom of this. If they don't, the feds will be descending on Ohio. So I know that the state representative said, well, we don't have a state police force, like they have the state highway patrol, and, we're kind of, our hands are tied because of the governor. Listen to me. Governor DeWine's in trouble right now, and his office, because he, just like Governor Walz, has actually approved these payments. The state treasurer, I talked to him on the phone as well. So I asked Robert Sprague, I said, well, Robert, listen, you're going to get some requests from the state auditor. He's going to ask you the detailed account of the checks that have been dispersed to these agencies, largely found in Franklin County, by the way. And let me give you an example. And I know that the representative wants to be careful about the Somalian community, but obviously these people have been pilfering the treasury, both the federal and the state treasuries, with these programs. There's outrageous fraud that's going on. And this isn't because some YouTuber said so. I'm telling you this because state agency, the auditor and others have already told me we're aware of the fraud. What they're doing is tracking it down at this time, all right? So what I'm going with the dollar devaluing in your pocket, and then you see this fraud, and you see the taxation, and then you don't see anybody being held accountable. You don't think that makes people over the top angry? That means that this is going to be a disastrous year politically. So it's not like, oh, hey, look at our great candidate. No, I'm sorry. Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, is not doing that well. He's got real problems. So we'll see what happens. There is a pathway for him to win this thing. But as it is, there's a lot of problems ahead. Every Republican knows that right now. I've been doing this for a quarter of a century. I didn't come around yesterday and started a YouTube channel. Many of you know that listen to me. So what I'm saying to you this year, and we're going to survey everybody. They're going to be in the voter guide. If they respond to the survey and all that kind of thing, we'll have candidate forums and all. But what you are going to be hearing from the Ohio Christian Alliance is the reality of the times. Because one of the things that we're really listening to is the grassroots people. We're a grassroots organization. I want to listen to what people are saying. Let me give you an example. I talked to Beth Lear, State Representative Beth Lear. She said, Chris, you're so right on about this issue. She said, my pastor was yelling at me through text about this issue. It's like, why should I pay my taxes when they're being pilfered away? In other words, we are having difficulty paying our own obligations. But by the way, 2025 was a terrible year. It wasn't the Trump economy. It was the tail end of the Biden economy. Now, I know the president, that's why I put out that email, that he's doing all that he can. And he finally came out in a speech about affordability. I wish he had given that speech 2 months ago, going into before the elections of the fall and before the end of the year, because that really was him trying to turn the ship around. And I agree with a lot of what the president's been trying to do. The question remains, will it be enough to turn the tide for the American people that they see positive things happening for them economically before they cast their ballot in November? That's it, bottom line. I really can't take the oh, I love this candidate and I love this guy. No, I'm sorry. We've already had enough of that stuff. And nobody's really interested in it. I'm going to tell you who isn't. The 30s and 20-somethings who are living the reality that they can't buy a home, they can't buy a car, they can barely make their payments. They're working, they're being taxed, but they don't see any future ahead. They just might not show up. Now, and remember, Charlie Kirk's not here to rally them anymore. You know, it's terrible that Charlie's gone. And there's no replacing Charlie Kirk, and he did some fantastic things. And I know the Turning Point USA is out there, but quite honestly, when we watched the AmeriFest gathering, there was a lot of vitriol that was going on there. That whole movement went from a very positive thing with Charlie about, and especially since he really energized his faith in the last few years. When he first started out, he was quite a libertarian, quite honestly, even on the social issues. This is before he became a born-again Christian. In the last few years, he really started to talk about faith, about getting married, falling in love, getting married, having children, following your faith. That was his message. What came out of AmeriFest, or what happened after his assassination with the YouTubers, Candace Owens and others, who started putting out conspiracy, suspicion. This is the kind of thing that Turning Point USA turned into. That's not the kind of issues that mobilize people for the vote in 2026. So let's get real here, shall we? Shall we really start having a discussion of what really is happening? So the Somalian fraud with a 23-year-old investigative reporter in Minneapolis, this kid, he did great work, okay? And so in Ohio, we know that the second largest Somalian community, you don't think that these people that practice piracy in their homeland and that have been transported here because of a civil war under the Obama administration, by the way, many of them are illegal. They came over through chain migration, but they're not legalized here. So eventually ICE is already working in Columbus, and they're already starting to deport some of these people. But they've actually gained the system. They have found a way to apply to these government programs through Childcare. And let's talk about adult health care, because that was one that was brought to me by one of the state officials and said, where we're going to probably see most of the fraud, and I know the representative didn't mention this because he's not aware of it, is home health care. Now, what's that? Let's say that my mom was still living. She died 5 years ago. But if she was still living and she was living in my home, I could apply, and I was helping her to stay in the home rather than going in a nursing home. It's more affordable. I could apply for funds that would, help us support mom's needs. And so that's the elderly. Well, those home health care programs, that is available. And so get this. The applications in Franklin County, that's where Columbus is, has more applications for home health care for that criteria than all the other 87 counties combined. And those applications in Franklin County reside in a very small area in Franklin County. That's where the fraud is. The auditor is on top of it. He is launching a standalone website on Monday to address these issues in response to the letter of the 41 state representatives, but his own work as well. And he said he's going to be making a major announcement about that. The DeWine administration is not going to be able to hide on this anymore. For those who have been around for a while, 2026 may look like 2006. Let me take you back. The Tom Noe coin scandal. Remember that? Joe, you were around back then. The Republicans got wiped out. They lost the governor's race, the attorney general's race, the only thing that was left, the auditor, they won. That was Mary Taylor. And they even lost the Ohio House. So, the speaker right now wants to wait till February to come back to address these things. If he doesn't get that body back right now, okay, and you start playing around, you might be the minority leader next year. Not because people favor the Democrats, it's just that they're so angry they just don't show up to vote. That's the real issue. What I've been watching on the internet is the following. I've watched GWAT veterans, okay? These are men and women who fought in the global war on terror. They came back home, they're working jobs, and they see that half their income goes for taxes, and then that is being frauded away. And this guy said, I wouldn't fight for the country right now. And he's not the only one who said that. I've talked to other GWAT veterans, men and women who love this country, went out there, put their blood, sweat, and tears on the line, or now do not recognize, because the invasion of immigration, the country that they look at, and they would not be willing to fight for it again. That's how bad it is with the grassroots right now. So I've never seen that in all my political life, in my whole life, that it's become to that critical point of where the electorate is right now in Ohio alone. The Republicans are aware of it. They're the ones in office, for the most part, a majority. And there may be an opportunity if they address these concerns, and if the president if his policies kick in, and the big beautiful bill and the tax refunds and more money in your paycheck and no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, and affordability of cars, and if they could do something about housing, that's another thing entirely, because the big money groups, management groups, are the ones buying up all the available residential properties, keeping it away from young families that want to buy a home, and then turning around like Potter in the movie It's a Wonderful Life and charging them high rents for the same property and keeping it away from them. So if the investment houses can be restricted somewhat from buying up all the residential property, and why are they doing that? Because commercial property tanked. It's one of the biggest things. It's about to collapse. If you go to any downtown area, they're all empty. They all had their investments there. Then they took their money that they had and they went and invested in residential property, keeping it away from everyday Americans and citizens. You don't think the younger electorate knows this? This is where they live.
All right, hang on a second.